Hello, everyone, and welcome to What We Watched, our monthly show where we talk about films and things. What is going on today? Well, for starters, my computer is doing some unusual things, which means we will have some technical difficulties tonight. Secondly, I'm joined by Aaron, who is a longtime friend of the channel, and it has been a while. We were talking about this beforehand. How have you been, Aaron?
Not too bad. I did say in a message beforehand that I've not seen too much in February, but I'm happy to just be back on the channel and talking about films as usual.
Absolutely, and I guess the main thing with this is we're going to talk a bit about movies. There was a big movie thing that happened in the last month, which I guess we're going to have to talk about. But you've watched at home, that is the key thing. It's not just about what we've watched and kind of what our filmography kind of thing is looking like. We kind of want to see what everyone else has seen. So please comment below with exactly what you've watched over the last month. We want to have a discussion about what your favorite films were, what your least favorite films were. What were your thoughts on the Oscars is obviously going to be a topic that's going to come up. Now we've given it like a week to settle after the results of the awards have come out. But yeah, we want to find those things out. So please go and do that. We'll throw our socials up towards the end. I want to get straight into it. And do you know what? I think before we go into what exactly we've watched for this month, I want to ask you the question. Were you happy with the Oscar results? Were there any surprises in there? What is your comments or thoughts on it?
I think overall, I was really happy with Anora winning the ones that it did. Because that's one that I saw at London Film Festival, and I've kind of been, along with everyone else, championing it. And the fact that Sean Baker just won 4 Oscars in one night, I think, is kind of fantastic. I love the fact that Flow won Best Animated Picture, because I saw that back in November, and I'm just really happy that, as much as I love The Wild Robot, as much as I love Inside Out 2, and the other nominations, I'm kind of glad that Flow just kind of came out of nowhere and won that category. To be honest, I'm pretty happy with the majority of the wins. And if there is a snub of any kind, I can't really think of one. Maybe Best Supporting Actress could have been given to someone else, but at the same time, Zoe Saldana's kind of earned it. I don't know. A lot of them I'm really happy with for the most part.
Yeah, the way I see Zoe Saldana's Oscar is it's a career Oscar, realistically, which is a shame that she got it for this performance, because I watched Emilia Perez. I didn't like Emilia Perez, and I think her performance is fine in it, but it's definitely not Best Supporting Actress of the Year kind of levels of fine. But I think it was got to the point where at the Oscars, she'd won every other award. And from the people I've spoken to in the film and kind of, in the film sphere, shall we say, all of them have gone, oh, great, Zoe Saldana finally got an Oscar. I loved her in, and then they named something completely different from Emilia Perez. They talk about a completely different film, which is not how you want it to be. I'm glad you brought up Flow as well. I'm going to talk about Flow today because I watched it at the start of February. And I'm going to go through kind of some of those films as well. On top of that, Anora winning Best Picture, I'm still split because I would have preferred Brutalist to win, but I do think it is a worthy winner. It's one of those where it's like, I had films which I preferred over it, but at the same time, I can't actually, I can't really, be angry at it winning, because, it was a great film. And it reminded me of another film I was going to talk about this month as well. We have Martin in the comments. I thought the Bond tribute was terrible. It was interesting. Very, very interesting. If you're going to do a Bond tribute, I understand them doing it for the music of it. Surely you've got to bring out the living ones, the ones who are still, kicking around, bring them out on stage to announce an award or something like that. That would have been better, maybe, as a tribute to it. Instead, it just seemed like it was a bit unusual. I mean, they had the Amazon jokes kind of at the very, very start, and then suddenly they're kind of hailing them and saying, hey, look at Bond, the psyche that Amazon now has. It's a bit it's unusual on that plane.
Yeah, it's a bit. It
But
was a bit of
Aaron,
a
would you
weird
like to go
one.
first? I was going to say.
Yeah,
No, you go, go,
yeah.
go, go,
No,
go.
I was just going to say it was a bit of a weird one considering you had the Wicked melody, which was brilliant, and then that was the next one, and it was a bit of a downgrade. That's all I was going to say. It just felt like a bit of a weird one to follow up with.
I did have someone say with the Wicked stuff, it's quite interesting that they brought Wicked out to do their songs, yet they were ineligible for Best Original Song, and they didn't really pick up many awards outside of makeup and production. So it's very interesting that they gave such a large amount of time towards Wicked, only for it to win not many awards. I guess you could say the case for Barbie last year, but
yeah, true, very true.
Okay, so let's get into what we watched this month. We'll go through our films and TV for the month. So would you like to go first?
I shall go first, even though I I will warn you now, it's kind of slim pickings. So the first film I watched, the first film I watched was the Amazon comedy "You're Cordially Invited," which has got Will Ferrell and Reese Witherspoon in it. It's fine. It's better than I thought it was going to be. I'm a bit hit and miss with Will Ferrell comedies, but this one actually wasn't too bad. It's nothing I will probably rewatch again in a hurry, but it's fine. The next thing I watched was a small independent drama called Cotton Tail, which I have done a review for Film Hounds magazine. It's got Lily Frankie in it from the Palme d'Or winning film Shoplifters, the one that came out in 2018 that I think won Best International Film at the Oscars.
Yeah.
And it's also got Kieran Hines in it as well. And it's again, it's another fine film. It's nothing mind blowing. It's just a nice little family drama about basically the wife of the family dies, and the husband, who's slightly older, and they're from Japan. They come over to the UK because her dying wish was to have her ashes scattered in Lake Windermere. But then when they come over here, the old husband is kind of set in his ways, and then there's kind of like language barriers as well, and it's well intentioned, but I can't see myself again. Similar to You're Cordially Invited, I can't see myself rewatching it anytime soon. It's fun. After that, I then, for some random reason, I don't know why I rewatched it. I just felt like it. Rewatched Steven Spielberg's War of the Worlds. I used to watch this film all the time. I think this is the thing. I was kind of craving a rewatch of it anyway, and then I suddenly remembered the film is celebrating its 20th anniversary this year, which made me feel old. So I just thought, screw it. I'll give it a rewatch, and it's a film that has it's one of my probably most rewatched Spielberg films. I don't know why. He has got better films in his filmography, but I just always see myself mentally coming back to this one. And it's a film that's kind of got a bit of a soft spot for me because there's a small handful of films that me and my nan used to rewatch all the time before she passed away, and that for some reason was one of them because we both really enjoyed it. And yeah, it's still really good. I don't care what anyone says.
My question, I was going to say, my question for that is its rewatchability not because it's a Spielberg film, but more of it's a Tom Cruise action film, and you could see it in both ways.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those weird films where every single time I've watched it, I appreciate a specific aspect of it each time. So when I was younger, I used to appreciate the kind of scale of it. I think the sheer size of the tripods kind of used to scare the crap out of me. And on another rewatch, I'd appreciate more like the special effects and the way everything's handled. And on this rewatch, I think the thing I really appreciated the most, which is something again I probably kind of overlooked when I was younger because I was more there for the action, was that core family dynamic. I still think the oldest son, Robbie, makes some stupid bloody decisions in the film, but the core dynamic between them just kind of, I don't know, it kind of hit a bit harder on this rewatch, and it just kind of clicked a bit more than it did on previous viewings. Not that I didn't hate it beforehand; it's just something that I've kind of warmed up to more over time. Yeah. But yeah, it's one of my, I don't want to say guilty pleasure. It's always kind of been in the background as one of my favorite Spielberg films, even though I know he's got better films in his filmography. It just always is one I keep coming back to. I don't quite know why, but yeah, it's 20 years old this year. I thought I'd give it a rewatch, and it still holds up. I still think the initial tripod reveal where it comes out of the road in the middle of the town is still like one of Spielberg's best scenes, because that whole entire segment is it is cinema, as Martin Scorsese would put.
Absolute cinema.
After that, and this one might surprise you, so the next one I watched was a first time watch of Liar Liar, which I had never seen before up to this point.
Okay.
Which I kind of am kicking myself because I grew up being a huge Jim Carrey fan. I grew up loving The Mask. I grew up loving Bruce Almighty. Actually, I rewatched that one again the other day. And for some reason, one of the big ones I'd never seen was Liar Liar. And my friend showed it to me, and it's bloody funny. I completely understand the hype around it. I don't think it's my favorite Jim Carrey film, but it's still absolutely hilarious. Yeah, I honestly don't know why it skipped me for so many years, but I loved it. I genuinely loved it. Yeah.
You always have those films, though. Like
yeah.
I was going to say, you always have those films where you love an actor and you're kind of not avoiding it, but you just don't watch a film from their catalog. And then you finally get around to it and you're like, oh my God, why did I miss out on that? My one was Tim Burton's Big Fish from last year. And that was like, oh my God, why have I never watched Big Fish? This is now my favorite Tim Burton film kind of thing. So yeah.
There's funny you mentioned that. There's Tim Burton's a good example because there are quite a few actors and directors who like, oh, I love their work, but there's like a massive blind spot that I for some reason have never seen. Tim Burton, I've never seen Sweeney Todd. I don't know where the sh came from. But I know that's a big one that everyone kind of always says is one of his best, and I've never seen it, even though I do really want to. And yeah, I'm trying to think if there's any other Jim Carrey blind spots. I've never seen Me, Myself, and Irene, even though I know that is kind of like a bit of a cult classic now. But yeah, I'm glad I've ticked Liar Liar off. Yeah, it's a weird one. No one talks about it, but whenever it comes up in conversation, everyone's like, "Oh yeah, that is pretty good." But yeah, I will get round to it at some point. After that, I then watched a very small micro-budget rom-com drama called Before Nika. I got sent a screener for this directly from the maker of the film because he wanted me to check it out, and I decided to give it a watch. And it's not bad. It's done on an incredibly low budget, and it was filmed, I think, in a few days, and it's obviously trying to copy the formula of Before Sunrise, but set in London with Indian actors. And the initial premise and the way it's executed for the most part is pretty decent. I think the thing that holds it back, and you can tell that this is like a directorial debut of like a very like not well experienced fairly experienced filmmaker, is that some of the dialogue and the way it's executed by the actors can come across as if they're kind of still running their lines. And again, it's nothing to do with the way it's shot is fine, the audio mixing's fine and all that, but it's just it takes a while to feel comfortable, whether that be the actors or the style it's going for. It does take a good half of the movie for it to then kind of click and everything feels natural the way it should for a rom-com that's reliant on two main characters to have chemistry from the go. It takes a while for that to kind of happen, and I think it's partially to do with the writing, partially to do with the directing, and also the acting, but it's fine. It's nothing to write home about. I think it's perfectly fine. I'm not sure. It was in cinemas for a little bit, but I'm not sure when it goes to streaming. But yeah, give it a go. Maybe, I don't know. It's fine. I'd rather watch Before Sunrise, which is the film it's trying to imitate.
I love Before Sunrise.
It's such a good film. So after that, I think I watched this on the same day as well. I watched the Oscar-nominated documentary Black Box Diaries, which is actually, if for anyone living in the UK, it's on BBC iPlayer now. That's how I watched it. So do yourself a favour and watch it because it is a brilliant documentary, which is about a woman whose name I can't remember. Bear with. It's about a journalist called Shiri who was sexually assaulted. 2019 by a very high up person in Japan who's friends with someone high up, like a mayor of a city of Tokyo, and the laws regarding sexual assault have not been changed for 100 years. But her coming out publicly and exposing them and getting them to do a retrial of her case single-handedly allowed them to change those laws which had been in place for 100 years and were outdated. It's quite an extraordinary documentary to watch, because at times it can be very hard to watch, especially because you're seeing it all from her perspective, trying to get this through the system and to try and get the retrial to happen. But at the same time, there is a sense of catharsis towards the end when she is on that verge to try and overturn this rule. And it's just a brilliant bit of filmmaking. I don't think I can see myself watching it. To be honest, like I watch a lot of documentaries and I find myself only coming back to a small handful, but I can understand why this was nominated for Best Documentary, because it's a very important film. It even addresses the Me Too movement, which, while they were trying to get the retrial to happen, the Me Too movement in America then sparked up, and they kind of used that as a catalyst to then try and get the retrial to happen. But yeah, it's a very fascinating documentary. It's also nicely presented, because some documentaries can be like very, I don't know, I don't want to say rough, but like they're literally just walking around with a camera trying to capture a thing. For the most part, considering its subject matter, this one is actually, it's got some nice ideas and presentation to it as well. And yeah, it quite rightfully deserved that nomination. I have seen No Other Land as well since it winning Best Documentary, and that definitely deserved it. But Black Box Diaries definitely would have been a close runner-up if I was voting. After that, I then watched the incredibly disappointing Captain America: Brave New World, which...
Now, I haven't seen this. I just want to point out. So, like, spoiler territory and all that. I've somehow avoided spoilers for it. I don't know how, but, you know.
I was
going to say, Martin's seen it as well. He thought it was average.
I will keep it as vague as I can then. But what my main issue with the film is that it tries to do too much. It's trying to wrap up about 4 or 5 different other MCU projects and doesn't actually focus on being a story about Captain America or Sam. He's just kind of there cleaning up all these other things from MCU films. And it kind of at times forgets that, like, oh, hang on a minute, we got to focus on a story focused on Sam being Captain America. They kind of falls to the wayside because they're so busy wrapping everything up. It does have some good elements. I think Anthony Mackie and Harrison Ford are the best elements of the film, especially Harrison Ford, who gives like an extra emotional layer to the character of Thunderbolt Ross that we've not really had with William Hurt's portrayal. And he adds a bit more personality to, not to say that William Hurt was bad, he just adds a certain layer to it that we'd not really seen in the character yet in the MCU. And yeah, I think also pacing wise, it can be a bit ropey because the first half feels very messy, and then the second half it kind of finds its stride and then just kind of goes in a specific direction. But yeah, that's all I'm going to say, keeping it spoiler free. But yes, it's a bit choppy. It's the best way I can describe. It's the best way I can describe it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else you've seen this month?
Yes, there's a couple more, just a few more. I watched 28 Weeks Later in preparation for the new one, 28 Years Later. I've seen the original, 28 Days Later. Absolutely love it. Finally watched this one. Wasn't a fan. I thought stylistically it was decent, and it's got a lot of actors in it that I like Jeremy Renner and Rose Byrne and Idris Elba and Robert Carlyle. The one thing I didn't like about it, though, is that almost every character, bar Jeremy Renner and Rose Byrne, every other character is stupid as hell. And sometimes when it's a horror film, I can kind of overlook a bit of stupidity. Some of the character decisions in this film are like beyond baffling, and I was just watching it like jaw agape, like what the hell. In any situation, if even I was in that situation, what are you doing? I would not. It just just a bit baffling. But yeah, I was not a fan. But I am very much looking forward to the new one. And then the last 3 films I watched were Sly Lives, which is a documentary about Sly and the Family Stone, directed by the same guy that did Summer of Soul. And stylistically, this documentary is very in keeping with that. It's very flashy, creative, in your face, and I think it's very good. It's a very solid documentary. It's available to watch on Disney Plus. I didn't actually know it was on there until I just kind of stumbled across it. I think it played at Sundance and then just kind of got dumped on Disney Plus. But it is very good. I highly recommend it. And then the last 2 things I watched, I finally watched Lee Whannell's Wolfman. I thought it was fine. I thought it had really good elements to it, but when you're comparing it to his previous horror film, The Invisible Man, that film was just on a whole other level, and Wolfman does feel a bit like a downgrade, even though it's still pretty decent in the long run.
Yeah.
I think the creature effects are genuinely fantastic, and the way it builds up in the second act in the second half is again really well done. I just think it takes an awful long time to actually get to the point of what it's trying to do, and then once it starts doing its thing, it becomes interesting, but it takes a very long time, and it does it very slowly to get to that point. And the last film that I watched for February is a documentary called War Paint, Women at War, which is a look at different female artists throughout the years who have covered different wars, whether they're photographers, painters, sculptors. That it basically looks at how women artists throughout different wars, going from World War II to stuff like the war in Ukraine have how they interpret war through their art. I don't know how much I can say about this film because the review I've written is still kind of under embargo, but that's all I'm going to say, and that it's pretty good. Yeah, that's all I'm going to say because I don't know how much I can say about it. But it comes out on March the 28th, I think. So yeah, that is everything I watched in February.
Interesting. You seem to have watched a lot of documentaries this month. Like,
yeah,
I have some months where I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to watch one specific style of film, but yeah.
Yeah, I am a massive advocate for documentary filmmaking. And I always try my best to watch as many of the like best documentary nominees as I can before and after the Oscars happen. But yeah, I'm a massive advocate for documentary, and I don't think it gets the love it kind of deserves. It always kind of gets pushed to the side for the actual films, and I'm like, documentary's still a form of filmmaking. Give it its, give it its due. So yeah, I think I didn't realize I'd watched that many documentaries this month. But it just kind of happened, and I'm not complaining. They're all pretty good from my perspective. All the ones I did watch were pretty decent.
That is completely fair. Okay, let's go on to what I watched this month. I watched a lot of rewatches of things, so I'm going to go through those very quickly first. So, Spider-Man 1, Spider-Man 2, didn't watch Spider-Man 3. And
why
that was
not?
because I was watching it with someone, and then they went and watched Spider-Man 3 without me, and then skipped straight on to Amazing Spider-Man. So I feel like I'm missing a few here. I need to go back and watch Spider-Man 3 this month, that's for sure. And then I need to watch Amazing Spider-Man 2, and then all Tom Holland's ones, just to kind of complete it, because I'm one of those OCD people where if I don't watch all of them, then it's going to really irk me. I ended up rewatching The Matrix with someone who'd never seen The Matrix before. That was an interesting experience, watching The Matrix with someone who'd never seen it. And it's been a while since I've seen The Matrix. And once again, it's one of those where it's like, I've seen The Matrix. I quite like Reloaded. I'm an advocate for Revolutions. So I'll watch those three. I'll watch the original trilogy. I may watch the Animatrix on top. I'm not sure if I'm going to go back to whatever the new one was called, Resurrections or whatever it was. So yeah, maybe I'll complete it all again this month. I think this month is going to be a lot of cleanup on films and film series that I've gone through. I rewatched Moulin Rouge.
Okay, I've never seen that. Never seen it.
It's a jukebox musical, but it's one that doesn't use music from the same kind of like band. Like if you watch Mamma Mia, it's all ABBA songs. Like if you watch Yesterday, it's all Beatles songs. It's not like that. It's a complete weird melting pot and montage of various different songs. It's Baz Luhrmann. It's hyper everything. It's a bit weird. It's fine. Like the editing style and the pace of the film is so breakneck that the only way that you could really fully enjoy it is if you've got ADHD and you're part of the TikTok generation and it just hooks you in. It's the best way of saying it's honestly like having like those videos where it's like someone streaming something and then there's like fucking Temple Run in the background or some shit, whatever it is, Subway Surfers. Like going, that's why it's like watching this film. It's just chaotic.
Oh god.
If that isn't selling it to you, to watch Moulin Rouge.
That does sound like Baz Luhrmann's style in a nutshell, to be honest. Whether you like his style or not, like that is his style, whether you want it to be.
But if you watch his other films, they're not as. I think on this one he was given like free reign to like go as nuts as he could go, and he went full. You never go full Baz, guys. That's what happens if you go full Baz. I rewatched just because with some of my co-workers had it on in the house. They had Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1, but Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, which, great films, always a fun watch. Here we go. Shrek. Rewatched Shrek 1. Now, Shrek 5 trailer came out, right?
Yep.
And I know people have been complaining about the animation. I don't care too much about the animation, purely out the fact that the animation difference between Puss in Boots 1 and Puss in Boots 2, I'm happy that they made
Yep.
that change. And it seems like they're leaning more towards into that modern DreamWorks kind of style of animation. I'm fine with that. I'm completely fine with that because they're evolving with the times and they're going with a unique animation style.
Yeah.
I am absolutely not sold with the Shrek social media generation thing.
No.
People already guessing what the plot's going to be about with Zendaya playing the daughter and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's already managed to draw a bad rep, even though it's only done a 20-second teaser trailer.
Yeah.
I don't know what to expect from it. I was really hyped
So
after Puss in Boots Last Wish,
yeah.
and now I'm not.
So when that teaser dropped, I was like, oh god, because I personally am not a fan of that new, like, take into account I've not seen Puss in Boots Last Wish, so I don't really know what the new style looks like. But having just seen that teaser, I was like, I'm not 100%. I need to be heavily convinced to make that they're going to make this style work. But I did agree with you. The whole social media aspect does worry me a lot. The fact they're going to play up to the stuff that's happened between now and the last film coming out, which is basically Shrek being memeified. And I'm not fully on board with that because, I mean, look how the Emoji Movie turned out. Is the best way I can sum that up.
Yeah.
It kind of leads to stuff like that. And I had to write a piece about this teaser, and I was like, I really can't be asked, but I managed to do it anyway. And I was like, oh god.
It's an odd one, especially watching the original Shrek and knowing how that series has gone with like the highs of Shrek 2 and the lows of Shrek 3 and the slightly recoveries of Shrek 4. Like it's odd that they're going back to it now. I know that it's an IP, it's DreamWorks, you know, it's something they can always fall back on, but even then, like a bridge too far, possibly. I rewatched Uncut Gems. Now, this links into something.
Okay.
So I rewatched Uncut Gems and I watched the Florida Project for the first time because I wanted the full Sean Baker Anora experience. Uncut Gems is a film where it does all the setup in the first half, and then the second half of the film is absolute breakneck pace, everything taking place within 24 hours kind of situation. Florida Project is, of course, Sean Baker's darling project. A lot of people saying his magnum opus, his best film. Even after Anora's won Best Picture, people are still saying that the Florida Project should have been given all the nominations and all the awards and stuff like that. I absolutely adored the Florida Project. I thought it was a fantastic film. I thought it was a really heartwarming film about, or heartbreaking even film about kids, you know, living on the breadline basically, and just finding fun in the little things. And I absolutely adore Uncut Gems as a film that was underappreciated during that Oscar run, and a fantastic rewatch every single time. With probably Adam Sandler's best ever performance. If he was to get nominated for an Oscar, it would have been for that. He's probably not going to get another shot again in a role unless he's given something really, really meaty to get his teeth into. But no, the combination of those two does make Nora. And I'm glad that I watched those two kind of throughout the month just to be able to kind of fully understand and get that film. But that was interesting. I watched. Oh, go on. No, go on.
I was just going to say, it's funny you mentioned the Florida Project because before seeing Anora at London Film Festival, that was and to this day, the Florida Project and Anora are still the only Sean Baker films I've seen. When I saw the Florida Project for the first time in 2017, I was not a fan of it. I'm not sure what about it didn't work for me. It just didn't. Something about the film just didn't click. And I even to this day can't quite put my finger on why. Whereas Anora clicked with me immediately, and again, I'm intrigued to revisit the Florida Project and see if my opinions change because that is a good 7-8 years now that's passed since it came out. So
Mm.
at this time, I don't particularly like the Florida Project, but that could completely change on a rewatch. So do bear that in mind.
Yeah. We got Martin in the comments again. I saw The Matrix originally when it was in cinemas. Fantastic. Nothing like I've ever seen. And also this comment on Uncut Gems. Excellent, but I found it a very stressful watch. That's the whole point of the film.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
there's a whole point of the film. In the similar vein, I think when George said he was advertising the film, he's like, "Oh, it was a good time." I was like, "Oh, okay. I like Good Time." But I ended up watching Uncut Gems because I prefer Uncut Gems over Good Time. Other films on rewatch, or at least, other films on rewatch. No, that's it. That's all the rewatch films done. Let's go through some interesting films. First time watches for this month. I'll go with ones which I'll finish off with the newer ones and maybe the big one at least. I watched Polite Society for the first time. I quite enjoyed it. It's like Edgar Wright light.
No,
but it's a fun, interesting film.
Yeah,
I enjoyed it. It was one where I didn't get bored during it, which is always a good sign. I enjoyed the action sequences. I enjoyed the comedy in it. I enjoyed the message behind it as well. I watched High Fidelity for the first time. Wow, I've never had a more unlikable lead character than John Cusack. He is awful in that film. He is absolutely terrible. I hate him. I know that like the whole draw of the film is like, oh, it's Jack Black's first performance and stuff like that. I've always heard that it's a great kind of not really romantic, but kind of slightly comedic kind of dramatization of relationships and stuff like that. He is a terrible character. He doesn't accept any responsibility for the things that he does wrong in the film and somehow gets away with it at the end. He's awful. Like, genuinely, he is. The way he treats people in the film, the way he treats women in the film is awful. I think that's the whole point of the film. I think the whole point is you're not actually meant to take a side. Like, slowly meant to realize, holy shit, this guy's a dirtbag. Like, which is fascinating. I watched Moana 2. It was a shocking downgrade from Moana 1. Like a really, really, really bad downgrade from Moana 1, which is one of my favorite modern Disney films. I don't really want to talk about it further. It had nothing of value added to it as far as the film is concerned. I watched Porco Rosso for the first time. That's a great Ghibli film. Loved that. I watched the English dub of it. And just some of the line deliveries in it are just brilliant. I can't remember what the line was, but they were like, "Oh, are you quoting Shakespeare?" He's like, "No, I'm quoting me." Porco Rosso just walks out the building. Guy has more like Chad energy flowing out of him than like anything going in any film.
I've not seen Porco Rosso in quite a while, but I think the one thing I do remember loving about it was just every line that Michael Keaton gave to that character was just like, yeah, he's added an extra level of like, I don't know, sassiness to it that just, I need to rewatch. I'm overdue a rewatch of that film, but that is a good pick.
Yeah. Having a look. Is that all the old ones? No. We've got two more. I'll finish on one of them, so I'll go back to that. Memoirs of a Murder, or Memoirs of Murder. Bong Joon-ho's.
Memories of Murder.
Finally managed to see it. Memories of Murder. I always read it wrong. Memories of Murder.
Yeah.
Finally managed to get to see it because I've been kind of waiting around. I've been like, should I watch it? Should I not? And I finally told myself I'm going to watch it. Great film. Great film. You can see the groundwork going into it for the thriller that is Parasite and stuff like that. But it's a really, really good detective thriller.
Yeah. Memories of Murder is...
I'm actually surprised.
Yeah. Sorry, you go.
I was going to say, I'm surprised it hasn't been given an American remake.
Yeah, that is very true. It kind of feels... funnily enough, because Memories of Murder is my favourite Bong Joon-ho film and still currently is, because it's so bloody good. But funnily enough, the one thing, if I'm trying to convince people to watch it, I kind of sell it to them as like, it's David Fincher's Zodiac, but in Korea. and I feel like Zodiac is
I see
probably the
that.
closest American film we're going to get to Memories of Murder, like tonally anyway and structurally. But yeah, if they decide to do an American remake of that, I don't know whether I'd be on board for that.
I think they could change bits about it to make it more interesting and stuff like that. But I guess the whole point of this is it's quite a small town. Like, it's very difficult to get away with it in kind of, dare I say, Western civilization, because anything that becomes small town where there's multiple murders, it suddenly becomes big town. Like, it would just immediately become a big thing, like a media thing and stuff like that. So it'd have to be A, set in the past, and B, yeah, it'd be an interesting one to go through. But I thoroughly enjoyed Memories of Murder. Now let's go on to some Oscar films. We Live in Time is not really an Oscar film. It tried to be. The issue is, I really love Brooklyn.
Yeah,
I really love Brooklyn. But like at the same time, you know, like this was an okay film.
Yeah,
it was fine.
I saw this back in November at Brighton Film Festival, the same day I saw Flow, actually. And I saw it with a friend of mine who absolutely loves Florence Pugh, and she loved the film. And there's me going, yeah, it's good. I've seen better from both of them, but it's fine. It's decent. I don't know.
The on-screen chemistry was, dare I say, the on-screen chemistry was better in the trailer than in the actual film. You believe it more before going into the film than you do watching it, which is a little bit disappointing. And it felt like, dare I say, it felt Oscar baity, which, you know, bit frustrating on that end. But glad you mentioned Flow. Glad you mentioned Flow, because Flow is not only my favorite film I've seen this year, but it's a film I saw in February, so you know it's on this list. Flow was good. Flow was really good. I really enjoyed it. I'm so glad it won Best Animated Feature, because not only does it give light to independent filmmaking as far as animation is concerned, but also it's a story that doesn't matter where you're from in the world. You don't need a translation for it. It can just be watched. And I love the animation style. I love the characters and the characterization of them. Like the music, the score is gorgeous.
Oh yeah,
it's just a film that I'm going to watch again very soon.
Yeah. Flow is a lovely bit of filmmaking. There's a film that I don't think many people have seen that I keep comparing it to, from 2016, and that's The Red Turtle, which again has no dialogue in it. But vibe-wise, tonally, in terms of like the natural beauty of it, I feel like that's quite a close comparison. But yeah, Flow is lovely. I'm so happy it won Best Animated Film. It's so well deserved.
Yeah. Next we got A Complete Unknown, which I thought was. I mean, I'm not a big Bob Dylan fan. I can appreciate his music. I think Chalamet does a great job in it. I think all the supporting cast team does a great job in it. I don't understand why it was suddenly getting hype of like, oh, there's a chance it could snag like Best Picture, there's a chance it could snag different awards. I thought it was very middle of the road. Maybe it's just the American audiences who can get behind a character like Bob Dylan or a person like Bob Dylan. For that, someone they recognize, but there were way better films in the Oscars this year. Of course, probably makes the top 10 anyway, but like at the same time, I don't understand why it was suddenly like shot up the list of like hype and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, I totally get what you mean. I saw it back in January when it hit cinemas, and I really liked it. But again, that it's a weird one. I really like it, and I think the performances are great. But there are like 5, 6 other films in the Best Picture category alone that I probably rank higher than that. As much as I enjoy the film, and I think Timothée Chalamet is great, I do think Dune and Anora and Conclave and all of those are probably better like picks for Best Picture. I don't know. I still like the film. I still like it.
Yeah. Well, my pick for Best Picture would have been The Brutalist, and that's the next film.
Okay.
I thought The Brutalist was phenomenal. I thought it was a phenomenal piece of filmmaking. I loved the cinematography. I loved the characters. I loved the story behind it. It's a horrible story, but I love how the 3 hours 40 runtime just didn't feel like that. Just didn't feel like 3 hours 40. It flew by. And the film just tells a story of, like, you know, the American dream in the first half, the American nightmare in the second half. And I think that's a really important film for, you know, modern day America to get behind and stuff like that. Especially with, you know, immigration and all the things going on in the news and everything like that. I think a film like that, on such a low budget as well, what they were able to do with that, just brilliant. Loved it. Absolutely loved it. And then I guess finally, the final film of the month that I watched, because it was a month where I watched a lot of films, was my favorite film of all time, Gattaca, which there will be a video on this channel one day which is fully dedicated to Gattaca. There will be. But yeah, I've waxed lyrical about Gattaca before. I don't need to again. All I need to say is I watched it this month and it gets better on every viewing. So there you go.
I'm well overdue a rewatch of Gattaca because I've only seen it once. It was good, I don't know, 7-8 years ago that I saw it. I liked it, but I know that it's one of those films where it's like rewatches will probably help like appreciate it more because there's so many layers to it and there's so many things going on. I feel like a rewatch kind of helps, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. I mean, it's my favorite film of all time, so of course I'm going to tell people to go and actually give it a watch. But please tell us what you've watched. We want to know exactly what everyone's watched at home. One thing I will say is this month I've already started. I've watched episode 1 of Daredevil. March 1 when we get round to it. I need to watch episode 2 as well and get through that series. Loads of TV actually coming up. Doctor Who's coming back in April. They announced The Last of Us is coming back in April. So I feel like in the next few months we're going to be very TV heavy as far as what on the channel, at least.
Yeah.
But if this will load in time, because I have no idea how fast this is loading on my computer. You go ahead. I've just thrown the socials up. You know, people know them by now if they come to the channel. So
yeah, I mean, I was just going to add on TV. The only I've been more watching TV than I have film this month, but I've really been playing catch up because I've been trying to watch Andor for the first time before season 2 drops at the end of April. And I'm also playing catch up because I finished Ted Lasso and I absolutely loved it. So yeah, there's still more TV shows to come. Oh God.
Yes, there are. I didn't really have a TV heavy myself. I didn't watch really anything. Next month, a big TV month, I know that for sure. But Aaron, I'm just going to throw your socials up on the screen as well. Aaron at the Movies. Where can we find you, Aaron?
You can find me on YouTube at Aaron at the Movies. I've recently did a video earlier this week talking about Mickey 17 because I got to go to the press screening for that. And I've got some more videos in the works. And you can check me out on socials at Arun Azza, where you will see me posting all of the written stuff I do for websites like Filmhounds and Get Your Comic On, and The People's Movies, which I've recently just become a member of their team as well. So yeah, that's my socials and that's my YouTube.
Brilliant. Excellent. So, girls, thank you ever so much, everyone who has tuned in tonight for our What We Watched February live stream. We're going to have loads of stuff coming out on the channel soon. Please keep an eye on our socials for that, as we'll be throwing them up onto there onto the Linktree thing in the description and all over the place. Anyway, we hope everyone has a lovely evening watching this video, and we'll see you on the next one. If the stream will end. See, this is the whole thing with,